chance. Trying to go to war with the champ. Trying to go back, but you can't. Now it's only one king, I'm the man.
Israel Adesanya. He has taken this sport by storm. He is 18-0, 7-0 inside the UFC.
Who can stop that man?
Who's gonna stop me? Who's gonna stop me?
First, Brunson was the guy.
Adesanya knocks Brunson out.
Then Gastelum was the guy.
Oh, what a performance by Adesanya.
Then Whitaker's the guy.
Oh, Adesanya, king of the middleweights.
The people, the casuals, they think Romero's the guy. So I'm like, all right, let's see if this guy can do it.
Walking too far till I'm numb to the coast. Coming for everything, diamonds and gold. Nothing to lose, it's all in my control. And I'm about to go savage, so don't say I won't. And I'm destined for greatness.
Yoel Romero.
He's one of the most explosive guys in the entire sport. Unbelievable knockout power. That's a terrifying man.
Easy. See you soon, boy.
He ain't ready for this. I'm the champion. Let's go.
Who's gonna stop me? Who's gonna stop me?
Israel Adesanya.
He is as sophisticated a striker as we've ever seen inside the octagon.
And he always brings it.
Who's gonna stop me? Who's gonna stop me?
Yoel Romero, he is a real freak of nature. Vicious knockout power.
Zhang Weili has won 20 straight fights.
The first Chinese UFC champion.
I want to send a message that I'm going to take what belongs to me. She doesn't know what's coming. The Story Queen is back.
Who's gonna stop me? Who's gonna stop me?
Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
She's a multiple-time world Muay Thai champion. One of the best strikers pound for pound in the entire sport. That is a scary woman.
Zhang Weili.
She fights to dominate. She fights to finish.
She's got power in her strikes. She's an animal.
My name is Zhang Weili. Remember me?
This bad blood is about as real as it gets.
You ain't got a chance. Trying to go to
What is going on, everyone? John Kelly here with FightNumbers.com. Hope you enjoyed that intro as much as I did. Super excited for UFC 248 this weekend. We have Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero. And then we have the other title fight in the women's strawweight division, Zhang Weili versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So there's definitely some fights that I'm super excited to talk about. Could not wait to get on stream tonight. Just to go over everything with you guys and get it out early enough so that we can capitalize on some of the betting market value that I see right now. And just kind of look forward to talking about this card, man. I'm super excited. If you never joined us before, basically I'm going to go fight by fight, go over each matchup, talk about how I see the fight playing out. I'm going to talk Draftkings pricing, fights in general that I think will be high scoring, and which sides that I like, which fighters to target. I'm also going to talk about the betting markets and talk about my favorite bets on the card where I see some value in the betting markets, as always. And we've been hot there too. Had a couple of big underdogs last week at UFC Norfolk, hoping to keep the good vibes rolling. Any questions as we're going through, try to keep it on the fights that we're going over. If not a big deal. Feel free to interrupt me at any time. I'm going to go fight by fight. And then at the end, I will do a quick recap on basically everything. I'll answer any questions at that time as well. And then I'll give my favorite bets on the card at that moment. And basically, this stream is brought to you by FightNumbers.com. That is my website where basically you'll have a video of this stream, basically to rewatch, to replay, or if you missed it live, that's fine. You can view it at FightNumbers.com. It also has DraftKings player rankings broken down by tiers so that you know which guys that I'm targeting on DraftKings. And then it also has ownership projections, which are done by me, and then a line movement page as well that's updated on Saturdays so that you can see where the betting money is coming in on different fights and different matchups. That is all free. Check out FightNumbers.com for any of that info. Now that stuff's out of the way, we can get started on the card. All right. So first fight up on the card is going to be, let's make sure I don't butcher any names this time around. All right. Dana Botjarel versus Guido Canetti. Not positive on Botjarel's pronunciation, but that's okay. Yeah, this one is interesting. Flyweight matchup. Guido Canetti coming off a long layoff here. Botjarel comes in as -135 favorite. Comeback on Canetti is actually okay. So it moved a little bit. So Botjarel -140 now. Comeback on Canetti is +120. This fight as a whole is -120 not to go to decision. And Botjarel's coming off a unanimous decision loss to Alatang Haili in his UFC debut. He was able to show off some decent kickboxing skills. He's pretty durable. Showed off a decent chin there. Alatang actually hit him with quite a few of those overhand right hands, and he wore them pretty well. And Alatang's got a ton of power at bantamweight. So, and that fight was at bantamweight. So, ultimately, Haili's power and his wrestling were too much. He lost the unanimous decision, but he's the favorite here against Guido Canetti. So Canetti, I mentioned the layoff. He's definitely a bit of a question mark because he's now 40 years old. He's coming off a 16-month layoff since losing to my boy Marlon Chito Vera in November of 2018. All 4 of Canetti's losses have come by submission, and he's clearly not looking for a grappling match. So I think this one, for the most part, is going to be a striking kickboxing matchup. Lucky for him, I mentioned Botjarel is a kickboxer, so I don't think he's going to be looking to grapple either. So I actually think, this one plays out on the feet, and I actually think Canetti is the better kickboxer here. I think he has more power, and his kicking game, I think, is much better. It's much more technical. It's more powerful. So I actually like Canetti, even with the question marks, due to his kickboxing advantage that I think he has, and just his overall aggressiveness. I feel pretty confident, regardless of the long layoff and the age. I'm kind of just ignoring that because you can't really quantify that. It's all kind of narrative based. So I think Canetti by decision is my official pick here. I actually wouldn't be shocked if he did catch Botjarel with like a head kick knockout or something crazy like that. But the pick is Canetti by decision. Like I said, I just think he's more powerful. He's more flashy. He didn't look all that bad his last couple fights. I know it was a while ago, but he didn't look like a guy who's on the back end of his career. He looked pretty fresh. Was actually winning the fight, I think, against Kang before he ended up getting subbed. He actually looked really good in that fight. So I like Canetti. I'm on the dog here. That is my first underdog play of the night. Next fight up on the card is going to be Giga Chikadze versus Jamal Emmers. Emmers -175 favorite. The comeback on Chikadze is +155. This fight as a whole is -125 not to go to decision, and it's actually money's moved that because it opened +110 and it is actually -125 now. So money coming in that this fight ends inside the distance. Inside distance line for both fighters, Chikadze +455, and it's actually trending the wrong way. I like that. I think there's value there. Chikadze, a very great kickboxer. I'll get into that in a minute, but I do like that, even though money is moving the other way on Emmers. And yeah, I mean, this one's interesting. Jamal Emmers, like I said, money's coming in on him. The word is out, right? Like I didn't expect him to be this big of a favorite for his UFC debut, especially against a guy like Chikadze, but here we are. Emmers is a legit prospect. He's coming out of LFA, where he's on a 4-fight win streak. He stopped all 4 of those fights before the final bell. So he does have a little bit of finishing power. He spans a lot of leg kicks. So I expect him to be very active with the leg kicks, especially early on against Chikadze, who moves pretty well. But he does take damage, throwing all those kicks. He leaves himself pretty open, and that's going to be a problem here. Chikadze, like I said, he's a great kickboxer. That's his background. He's one of the best kickboxers in this division. He's on a 3-fight win streak of his own, most recently coming off the split decision victory against Brandon Davis. And he's got legitimate power. So I don't know. I just think the money's moving the wrong way here. And maybe that's a fish play, but I'm pretty confident on Chikadze. I think the betting line is actually the opposite of what it should be. I have Chikadze as a like a minus 150 favorite is probably what I'd cap it as. So the fact that he's plus 155 means that's like basically an auto bet for me. And I love the plus money. Chikadze by decision is the official pick. But like I said, he's got power and he's got skills as a kickboxer. So if this fight is going to be 15 minutes at range, I got to lean Chikadze as the more skilled kickboxer in my opinion. So I like the plus money. I'm on another dog here. Back-to-back dogs to start off the card, just like last time with Brady and Carlisle. We ended up hitting on both of those. Hopefully we can run it back with Guido Canetti and Chikadze. And then let me pull up DraftKings real quick. Because I forget what Chikadze's priced at. I think he's 7,700. Chikadze Emmers. Yeah, so Chikadze is 7,700. Emmers is 8,500. And Chikadze scored 73 against Brandon Davis. That's okay. But Brandon Davis was trying to wrestle more than I expect Emmers to. And Emmers obviously making his UFC debut. But like I said, I'm on Chikadze here, 7,700. I like the dog money, and I like the cheap price on DraftKings. Next fight up on the card is Emily Spitfire Whitmire versus Polyana Viana. And Viana minus 115 favorite. The comeback on Whitmire is minus 105. So it's basically a pick'em fight here. This fight to go to decision is minus 155. I actually think that's kind of low. I'm not really expecting a finish here, unless maybe Viana subs Whitmire, but we'll see. Like I said, it's basically a pick'em fight. Viana's on a 3-fight losing streak, and Emily Whitmire's coming off the submission loss to my girl, Amanda Ribas, last June. This matchup is a little bit difficult for me just because on one hand, we have Whitmire, who's 2-2 in the UFC, but both of her losses are to legitimately good competition, Jillian Robertson and my girl, Amanda Ribas. So they're both, I would consider them pretty strong fighters in this division. And all 3 losses of hers are by submission. So she's only a blue belt. She's getting better, but she is still only a blue belt. And that could be an issue here against an experienced purple belt in Polyana Viana. And it seems that Viana's biggest weakness is to boxers. She dropped decision losses to JJ Aldrich, to Hannah Cyphers. What do both Aldrich and Cyphers do? They just sit there and box at range. That's all they do. They're not looking for takedowns. They're not looking to grapple. They're just boxers. And Emily Whitmire is not a boxer. I think Whitmire will probably look to wrestle, land some takedowns. But I think Viana's experience and grappling advantage ultimately make the difference here. Emily Whitmire still only, I believe, 7 professional fights. So I lean Viana. It's not super confident. Overall, it's kind of just a stay away for me on DraftKings. Even though they're priced in the mid-range, I could see the winner of this fight scoring like 60 to 70 points outside of a surprising finish. And if there were a finish, I would expect it to be Viana just because she's a stronger grappler. But Viana by decision is the official pick. But like I said, overall, I'm not going to be super exposed to this fight on DraftKings. And that is it for the early prelims. Then the prelims on ESPN. To kick things off, we have another one of my guys, Deron Winn versus Gerald Meerschaert. Deron Winn minus 145 favorite. The comeback on Meerschaert is plus 125. Money's been coming in on Meerschaert too. Deron Winn, as you can see, opened as a minus 180 favorite. Now bet down to minus 145. Fight goes to decision is minus 120. And I believe Meerschaert actually has the better inside distance line. Yeah. So Deron Winn's inside distance line plus 320, trending the wrong way. and Mearshardt's inside distance line is plus 230. That's also trending the wrong way. So I guess Vegas is expecting a decision here. I kind of am too. And I think if it goes to decision, that definitely favors Deron Winn. And for starters, Deron Winn talked on the Ariel Helwani show this week about how he was extremely disappointed in missing weight. His last fight against Darren Stewart, he talked about how it affected him mentally and how he was just like emotionally drained because he was embarrassed about the weight cut and missing weight. He said it was a tough weight cut for him. He said his first against Eric Spicely in his debut, that weight cut went so smooth that he said maybe he got a little lazy, came into fight camp a little bit heavier than he thought, and then it was just a tough weight cut for him. So he was embarrassed about that. Wasn't right mentally. And I still thought he won that fight against Darren Stewart. It ended up being a split decision. Deron Winn landed 6 takedowns in that fight. Wasn't super impressive, but I mean, if you land 6 takedowns, you're doing something. And I mean, it was a close fight. Could have went either way. I thought he won, but it is what it is. And basically, this one is tough for me. So Mearshardt's a black belt, right? So what happened the last time Deron Winn faced a grappler? Eric Spicely. What did he do? Well, even though he has that strong wrestling background, Daniel Cormier's protege, what did he want to do with Eric Spicely? He wanted to stand at range and wing bombs for 15 minutes. And it was an excellent fight. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it because that was actually a war. And he ended up getting pretty tired. And that's what happens when a wrestler just tries to throw haymakers for 15 minutes straight. But he does have legitimate power in his hands. He's got a couple knockouts on his record. But I could see that being similar to his game plan here against Mearshart because I actually think Mearshardt's a better grappler than Spicely. So I can see him implementing a similar game plan. Mearshardt's not a very good striker. He's a black belt. Like I said, I think he's a better grappler than Spicely. So I don't know if Deron Winn's going to use that wrestling advantage because he might be worried about playing in Mearshardt's guard. And Mearshart will pull guard on him too. So it's not like he can land takedowns at will. I just don't know if he will. He might just try to look to keep the fight standing if he thinks he has an advantage on the feet, similar to the Spicely fight. And I think he does have an advantage on the feet. So it's actually not a terrible game plan. The problem is it won't score super well unless he mixes in takedowns or he gets a finish. And he is priced in the mid-range, so he's affordable. It looks like I'll probably have a few shares. I'm not going to go super heavy just because, like I said, if he decides not to go for the takedowns and he's not super active and tries to maintain his cardio and stuff like that, maybe he's not super active as much as he was in the Spicely fight. So, but overall, I think it could score decent, and that's why I'll have exposure to both sides. The pick is Deron Winn by decision, but I will have a few shares of Mearshart on the other side just because if Mearshart wins, then it is definitely coming by submission. I would be shocked if Mearshart won a decision, or if Mearshart won a knockout. I'd be very shocked at that. So all the pieces of both, slight lean towards Deron Winn. Overall, I think the fight could score decently well on DraftKings though. Next fight up on the card, Rodolfo Vieira versus Saparbek Safarov. And Vieira, this one, I mean, is super easy to break down. Vieira minus 750 favorite. The comeback on Safarov is plus 525. Last I checked, Vieira had the best inside distance line on the slate, minus 255. I don't think anyone's beating that. And it opened at minus 275, which is pretty crazy. Vieira by submission was a little bit better. Minus 210. So you're paying a little bit less on that. And he's probably not getting a knockout. So if you're going to bet it, that's what I would bet. But like I said, this one's super easy to break down because he's the biggest favorite on the card. He's the biggest favorite on the card for a reason. He's a world-class black belt, one of the best grapplers legitimately on the planet. And his opponent is essentially just this warm body that they brought in. He's 1-2 in the UFC. I just don't expect much from him. Vieira should make quick work of him. And this honestly reminds me of the Felicia Spencer Zarah Farron fight at UFC Norfolk, and I expect a very similar result, except for I expect a submission and not a ground and pound victory. So Vieira by submission is the official pick, and he's one of the strongest plays on the board on DraftKings. The only problem is he is the most expensive fighter on the card, but we do have legitimate underdogs that we like on this card. So you do have money to fit him in if you want to, but there's so many people expensive wise that you want to play this week too. So it makes it certainly a decision. Vieira priced up at 9.3K on DraftKings, scored 106 in his debut with the second round submission victory against Pichota. But yeah, so he's a great play. He's just expensive. You're going to pay for it, but the pick is Vieira. All right, next fight up on the card, Austin Hubbard versus Mark, the Olympian Madsen. Mark Madsen, minus 225 favorite. The comeback on Hubbard is plus 185. This fight to go to decision is minus 195. And I can definitely see that happening as Hubbard's coming off a unanimous decision victory against Kyle Perpolik back in September. And he'll look to play spoiler here against the undefeated Olympian in Mark Madsen. He's a silver medalist, former silver medalist at the Olympic Games. His obvious advantage is his wrestling. And yeah, I think Hubbard really doesn't have much for him. And I actually like Austin Hubbard. He trains out of Elevation Fight Team in Colorado with Corey Sandhagen, Curtis Blades, Neil Magny, who's also on this card. We'll get to him later. And on Sandhagen's podcast, I think it's the Punchlines podcast, him and Blades, when they did an interview with Curtis Blades, and they're constantly talking about how much improvement Austin Hubbard is making in between fights and each week at practice and stuff like that. Like, they're legitimately talking him up. So he is getting better. He's a guy to watch out for in the future. It's just that I don't think this is a good matchup for him. So, having the ability to defend a couple takedowns, sure, but having the ability to defend takedowns from a former Olympian wrestler over and over again for 15 minutes, it's a pretty big ask. And I think that's going to be a serious problem for him. And he's not exceptional off his back. So I just think Madsen's going to play the wrestling game here. Dominant position, control him on the mat, and maybe land some ground and pound. But ultimately, I think he cruises to a decision. Madsen by decision is the official pick in this one. But like I said, Hubbard's a guy I think to watch out for moving forward. It's just this matchup is tough for anybody, but especially him. So the pick is Mark Madsen by decision. When it comes to DraftKings, Mark Madsen's 9K. It's a little pricey, and like I said, we have a lot of people to choose from at 9K and above. Israel Adesanya, we have Zhang Weili, who's right below 9K. We have Rodolfo Vieira, 9.3K. So we have to make a lot of decisions here. Obviously scored really well in his debut, got the first round knockout. I'd be surprised if he knocked Hubbard out. Like I said, I think it goes to a decision, but he should land many takedowns. So he has a high floor, high ceiling if Hubbard keeps getting up, but I don't know if Hubbard can keep getting up, especially with a guy that has the pedigree of Madsen as a wrestler. So the pick is Madsen by decision. I'm not going to be super overweight on DraftKings just because I like a lot of the other options around him. And last fight up, the featured prelim bout is going to be Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Jose Quinones. And Sean O'Malley, the long-awaited return. This dude's been out. He was on a USADA ban, multiple ones, and then like back and forth with USADA, tainted supplements, and this and that, blah, blah, blah. Well, now he's finally back. He's cleared. Was supposed to fight a couple times. Didn't happen because of the whole USADA thing. Minus 365 favorite. The comeback on Quinones is plus 305. This fight not to go to decision, minus 165. And the inside distance line for Sugar Sean O'Malley is minus 120. and Quinones is plus 725. So we're not expecting to finish on his side, obviously, as a massive underdog here. We're definitely expecting one from O'Malley with that strong inside distance line. The problem is, and it's not really a problem, it's just, I guess, the worry I have is O'Malley hasn't fought anybody yet. Like, he's undefeated. 6 of his 10 professional wins are by knockout. It's just he hasn't faced any real competition. And he even said it, like, in a recent interview this week, I think, with ESPN, he even said, like, the guys that I beat aren't even in the UFC anymore, the ones that were. So that is a little bit of a concern for me, and I would be more interested in taking a leverage fade on him if this was a different opponent. I do not trust Quinones at all, pretty much. So I do think O'Malley pretty much rolls in this one. Um, I just think he's the more powerful striker, the more aggressive striker while this plays out on the feet. Quinones, not super active. I expect him to put a pace on Quinones, and Quinones doesn't have a ton of power coming back the other way to stop O'Malley from moving forward. And then O'Malley's also a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he's constantly improving his ground game. So I don't think this necessarily will go to the ground, but if it does, I actually favor O'Malley on the ground as well. I mentioned the strong inside distance line minus 120. I like that. I like him as a play on DraftKings. Quinones has been a little bit chinny in the past, so I wouldn't be super shocked if he got the knockout. And that's actually going to be my pick, is O'Malley by knockout. But honestly, even if he doesn't get the finish, I think it will be pretty surprising to see Quinones win any rounds, because I just think O'Malley outstrikes him and he lands the more impactful strikes as well. So the pick is O'Malley. I think the betting line, there's not much value there. If you are going to bet it, then it's the inside distance line for sure at minus 120, and just hope he gets the knockout. But the pick is O'Malley for sure. And then when it comes to DraftKings, he's another guy priced up in that 9K range that is a solid play, has a high ceiling. He's 9,100. And I don't really have any interest in Quinones coming back the other way. All right, the main card. We have arrived to the pay-per-view main card. Kicking things off, we have Alex Cowboy Oliveira versus Max Griffin. Oliveira, the minus 145 favorite. The comeback on Griffin is plus 125. This fight to go to decision is minus 130. And we have another dog play. I'm on Max Griffin, and I know a lot of people don't trust Max Griffin, but hear me out, because Oliveira's coming off 3 straight losses, and Griffin, I know, isn't much better. He's won just one of his last 4 fights, but it could really be different for Griffin. Got completely robbed against Thiago Alves. Put up a decent showing against Alex Morano. I'm not saying he got robbed in that one, but he looked pretty good. He showed some heart, showed some durability, and had some moments in that fight as well. He's got strong takedown skills, and I think his wrestling is probably his best path to victory here, is to just out wrestle Oliveira for 15 minutes. And his last 6 fights have all gone to decision. And those last 6 fights, probably 2 or 3 of them, you can make an argument that the judges weren't super kind to him. So maybe he looks to get a finish here. I think he said in an interview, like, I would love to finish it early because he hates going to decision since he's gotten robbed a couple times. But I kind of still see this one going to decision. But on the other side, we have Alex Oliveira, who, even though he's actually like 3 years younger than Max Griffin, it seems like he's the older fighter. His best days, I think, are definitely behind him, in my opinion. He's a striker that's always looking to finish the fight early. But again, in my opinion, he does not have the same type of power that he once did. And Griffin has been durable too. So even if he does still have that power, it's not like he's just automatically going to knock Max Griffin out. But I basically have this as a pick 'em fight, in my opinion. So I have a slight lean towards Griffin. maybe have him as a slight favorite, and he's still a slight underdog at plus 125. So the fact we're getting plus money on him, I have enough interest in that. I'll take a poke at that one. The official pick is Griffin by decision. When it comes to DraftKings, I definitely favor Griffin, and the reason being is, people talk a lot of shit about Max Griffin because, yeah, he doesn't have a great record, and yeah, he's burned people in the past, but when it comes to DraftKings, the dude knows how to score. And, look at these takedowns. 4 takedowns, 1 advance. 6 takedowns, 2 advance. 2 takedowns, 2 advance. He's scoring points, and he's landing strikes while doing that, too. He lost to Alex Moreno his last time out. Still scored 61. Would have scored 91 in a decision victory. Fight before that, scored 90 points in a decision victory against Thiago Alves, where I said he got robbed. Scored 87 in a loss. Scored 30 in a loss against Curtis Millender. That was really the only one that he didn't score super well. And then has a win against Mike Perry. And then now we're just getting further and further down his history here. But definitely scores well on DraftKings. So worst case scenario, he has a high floor. But I like his upside here. I think it'll be a close fight, but I just think he out wrestles Oliveira, and I think that kind of makes the case for him to win a decision. All right, next fight up on the card, we have Neil Magny versus Zhanglong Li. Li is the minus 180 favorite. The comeback on Magny is plus 160. This fight not to go to decision is minus 125, and the inside distance line for both fighters, Magny is plus 510, which is pretty terrible, and Lee is plus 140. Trending the wrong way a little bit, but I still kind of like it. We'll see. I'm on Lee in this one. It's no surprise. Most people are, I think. He's won 7 of his last 8 fights, and 5 of those wins came inside the distance. He has a ton of power. He has 8 knockdowns in his UFC career. He's also a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I pretty much just favor him everywhere in this fight. Neil Magny coming off a 16-month layoff after getting knocked out by Ponzinibbio in November of 2018. And he's another guy who I think is definitely on the back end of his career, and he's lost a step or two. But he's still a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so when it comes to grappling, I don't think he's at a huge disadvantage on the mat. But while this fight plays out on the feet, I kind of do think he's at a pretty big disadvantage here. I favored Lee just due to the volume. Like I said, he's very powerful, and then I favor him to the power, and then he also throws in a lot more volume than Magny. So ultimately, I just think he's kind of better everywhere in this fight, and Magny hasn't been the most durable guy either in his career. So I think it's possible we see Lee get the knockout here. I'm definitely on the Lee side. The problem is on DraftKings, if he doesn't get that knockout, then he's a little expensive. I think he's 8,700. We'll pull up DraftKings pricing here real quick. He's 8,600, so it's not terrible. But if this goes to decision, it's possible he only scores like 80, which isn't going to do it for us, like he did against Abe 3 fights ago. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to see him get a finish either, just because, like I said, Magny's been chinny, and I think the pressure is going to be a lot for him to handle. So the pick is Lee. Next fight up on the card, we have Beneil Dariush versus Drakkar Klose. Dariush minus 170 favorite. The comeback on Klose is plus 150. This fight to go to decision is minus 135. The inside distance line for Dariush is plus 185, and the inside distance line for Klose is plus 490. And we know why his inside distance line is bad, because he goes to decision every single time. Dariush coming in on a 3-fight win streak. He'll look to make it 4. Klose, same thing, coming in on a 3-fight win streak, trying to get that 4th. He generally doesn't produce a ton of volume and will look to land a few takedowns, steal some rounds. Like I said, he's a decision machine. All 6 fights of his career in the UFC have gone the distance, along with his 2 fights prior to coming to the UFC. So 8 fights in a row have all gone to decision. And this is really a difficult matchup for him. He's only a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Dariush is obviously a black belt. He's very experienced on the mat. And along with that, he's 2 inches shorter than Dariush. Dariush will have the reach advantage. When it comes to who's faced the tougher competition, it's not even in the same ballpark. Dariush has clearly fought the better competition up to this point. So, yeah, I mean, I think Dariush just steamrolls him. I don't know why. Like, I've seen people debating this kind of a lot. I really don't even think it's a question. I know you see Close's record and think that, I think he's like 11-1 professionally or something like that, but he hasn't really fought anybody, and he's definitely hasn't fought anybody the caliber of Beneil Dariush. So, like I said, I think he steamrolls him. The only reason I have a little bit of pause on just loading up on Dariush in this spot is because of his chin. I do not trust his chin. He's been knocked out multiple times. He was stunned by Drew Dober in that fight against Dober. He ended up winning it, did recover, but it came really close to another Drew Dober knockout. So Dariush wouldn't be surprised at all if he got dropped. And Close he's not really a power guy, but it's just the fact that I do not trust the chin of Beneil Dariush. But I'm still going to be on Dariush here. Dariush by submission is the official pick, but I just think the longer this fight plays out, the more live Close is as an underdog. I would look to fade Dariush in future matchups, but against guys that actually have a little bit more power than Drakir Close. And so, yeah, I'm still going to be on Dariush. I wanted to mention that just so you don't just go 100% Dariush with no concerns. And Dariush by submission, I wanted to talk about that because plus 225 for him to win by submission. Like I said, he's an experienced black belt facing a blue belt. That's not like black and white, but that's a pretty significant advantage. And obviously, you can see that it opened at plus 325, and people hit that pretty early and actually hit it even more today to drop it another 40 points. But I still think there's a ton of value at plus 225. I like that bet quite a bit. All right, the 2 title fights. We have in the women's strawweight division, Zhang Weili versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And Weili, the minus 165 favorite. The comeback on Joanna is plus 145. This fight goes to decision as minus 145. And the inside distance line for both women are Weili is plus 150. And the inside distance line for Joanna is plus 685. And the reason why is because Joanna's another decision machine. But Weili's a finisher. And I think at plus 150, that is a ton of value, considering it's a 5-round fight. She's going to have plenty of opportunity to get a finish here, and I think she does. And here's why. Since making her professional debut, which she lost, she's on a 20 fight. She won 20 straight fights. She's on a 20-fight win streak. She's ended 17 out of those 20 fights inside the distance. This girl is a finisher. She has absurd power. Honestly, her power is unmatched, and the combination of her speed and power, I would say Joanna has a little bit more speed, especially with her jab. But it's not far off. And Zhang definitely has more power, and she's also a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She holds the grappling advantage. She holds the wrestling advantage, and she holds the power advantage. So, and the speed advantage is the only thing Joanna has, and like I said, it's really not that much. So, the only real way I could see Joanna winning this fight is by repeatedly pumping that jab, snapping that jab. She has an excellent jab, but that's it against a fighter like Zhang. Like, you can't do anything. She has the advantage almost everywhere the fight goes, and she has the legitimate power to end it early, especially because, like I said, it's a 5-round fight. And Joanna's always been a decision machine, so it's not like she's going to end the fight early. So her only real path to victory is just landing that jab and moving around a ton and avoiding those power shots coming back the other way from Zhang. It's just I don't see that happening for the course of 25 minutes. I think at some point in the fight, Zhang Weili hurts her, and whether it's on the feet or Weili decides to take it to the mat where she does have an advantage, a pretty big advantage, and maybe she gets to mount and land some ground and pound or something like that. But I do think she gets a knockout win. I think she gets the finish. The pick is Zhang by knockout, and she is a very strong play on DraftKings. I believe she's 8,900. We'll go back to DraftKings to check the scoring. Yeah, 8,900, and Joanna is 7,300. Joanna's going to be a really popular underdog pick, and I don't mind her as an underdog pick, even though, like I said, I think it's pretty likely that Zhang wins. And Zhang is just, I mean, she's a machine. When she gets those finishes, she scores well over 5 rounds. This is going to be super high paced, and that's why I want to talk about it for a second here, is because I actually don't hate the idea of stacking this fight, because Joanna, if she doesn't get finished or maybe gets finished in the 4th or 5th round, she could legitimately land. She could have had landed 100 or so significant strikes, maybe more by then. She landed 180 against Michelle Watterson. You know, that's 90 points right there. So stacking this fight is not a bad idea. And if you're playing like 10, 15 lineups, I wouldn't mind stacking this fight in 1 or 2 of those. I mean, don't go crazy, but if all of the underdogs that we like end up losing, we could potentially see a stacked lineup here win it, with Joanna scoring 90 points in a loss or something like that, 80 points in a loss. But the pick is Zhang for sure. I figured I'd mention that because Joanna is cheap. But she is going to be a popular underdog pick. I just don't think many people are going to stack them together, which makes me have a little bit of tournament interest if playing multiple lineups. And just a disclaimer, when the line first came out, I did bet Joanna to win, and that was really before I did like a deep dive on the matchup. And just because I'm a Joanna fan, I saw she was plus money, and I'll pretty much bet her at plus money against anybody. But it wasn't a good bet. It was a biased bet, and I'm just giving the disclaimer now in case I post anything on Twitter or something showing that she somehow won and I bet it, and you guys are like, oh my God, you told us that Zhang was going to win and get a finish. I just want to put that disclaimer out there. I do have a pretty sizable bet on Joanna, but it was a terrible bet, and I regret it. I actually might even I might just hedge out of it and place an even bigger bet on Zhang to win by knockout, because I do think that is the most likely outcome here. All right, the main event that you have all been waiting for. We have Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero, Soldier of God versus the Last Stylebender. Last Stylebender comes in as the minus 280 favorite. The comeback on Soldier of God is plus 240. This should be another awesome fight. These two, the co-main and the main, these are going to be amazing. I'm super excited for Saturday, if you can't tell already. On one side, we have Yoel Romero, who's one of the toughest dudes to ever step foot in the octagon. And then obviously all the hype behind the Last Stylebender, Israel Adesanya, who's an excellent kickboxer. He's just an all-around stud. I think the line is actually a little bit wide. I do think Izzy's the rightful favorite for obvious reasons. He's undefeated professionally. He holds a 7-inch reach advantage in this fight, and he uses that range so well and that reach advantage so well. So he's also proved to have a really good chin on him. You know, he took a lot of shots in that Kelvin Gastelum war. Even took a shot or two from Robert Whittaker before he knocked him out. And it's likely that his chin gets tested again here against the power of Yoel Romero. So yeah, I mean, it should be a war. It's going to be fun. Romero's really only advantage is his wrestling for obvious reasons. He's another silver medal, former silver medalist in the Olympics. And I can't help but mention the fact that Yoel Romero was winning silver medals in the Olympics before Israel Adesanya even hit puberty. So it's just kind of crazy, the age difference in this one. Romero's 42 years old. He's still doing backflips and breakdancing. The dude is he's completely jacked. It's insane the condition that he keeps his body in. But he's coming off 2 straight losses, and honestly, I think this is going to be his third. Like I said, I think it should be a competitive war, especially early in the first couple rounds. But I think over the course of 5 rounds, and especially in those championship rounds, I think that's where we start to see Izzy take over. Similar to like John Jones, how he starts to get better as the fight goes on. That's kind of like how Izzy is, especially where we see that range advantage and the reach advantage, how well he uses that. You see that more in the later rounds, in my opinion. And I think that's going to be more evident in the championship rounds against Yoel Romero, especially when Romero starts to get tired after taking all of those kicks, after taking all of those shots, and trying to constantly take him down probably for the first few rounds. So the more tired that Romero gets in those later rounds, I think we start to really see Izzy start to pick him apart here. And that's where I think the biggest advantage is in this fight. So that's kind of how I see this one playing out. I do think Izzy defends the belt here. I'm fairly confident in that one. So last style bender by unanimous decision is the official pick. And I actually think there is value in that. Plus 165, Izzy by decision. That's going to be one of my favorite bets. I haven't placed it yet. The only bet I've placed so far is the Joanna one, which, like I said, I already regret. That was more of just a fanboy bet before I dove into it. But let's see. Izzy by decision plus 165. And actually open up at plus 200. Obviously, you can see money brought that down quite a bit. But at plus 165, I still think that's pretty decent value. So that's going to be one of my favorite bets on the card. But that pretty much wraps things up. Some of the other bets I like Canetti at plus money, plus 120. He's my first underdog pick. I like Chikadze at plus 155. I think I like that even more than Canetti. That's my other underdog. And then a couple of the other method of victory or prop bets that I like is Dariush by submission is plus 255. And I like Zhang Weili inside the distance, which is, I believe, plus 155 or plus 150. What did I say it was? Weili inside the distance, plus 150. So, like I said, I think that might honestly be the best bet on the entire card, is Weili wins inside the distance. Because I just do not see Joanna being able to take the power shots of Weili for 25 straight minutes. I don't see it. So the fact that we're getting plus money on it is pretty damn good. So I like that. And then the last one for my favorite bets is Israel Adesanya by unanimous decision, and that's plus 165. So that wraps things up. In terms of DraftKings strategy, like I said, this is going to be a fun one. We have a couple live underdogs, and I think both of the underdogs in the co-main and the main are going to be very popular because they're so cheap. And anytime you have a popular fighter that's so cheap like that, even though they're a pretty sizable underdog, they always garner some ownership. So that's going to be interesting, seeing where all the ownership goes. And then, like I said, the 9K range is so tough to decide. You have Madsen, you have Zhang, you have Dariush, you have all these guys, Israel Adesanya, Rodolfo Vieira, you have Sugar Sean O'Malley. All of them could legitimately win inside the distance or score over 100 points. So I'm going to have exposure to a lot of those and then sort of mix in the underdogs I like with them, and then a couple of the guys in the mid-range as well. But overall, I think it's going to be a fun card. We have another card, just like last week, where we have a lot of close betting lines, a lot of close fights, and supposedly a lot of fights that could end inside the distance. So hopefully we get some finishes. I know we all love that. Like I said in the beginning, go ahead and check out fightnumbers.com. That's where you can find a replay of this video. You can also find DraftKings player rankings, ownership projections, and line movement page updated on Saturday. Completely free. You can also find us on YouTube at Fight Numbers. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at John Kelly DFS. And you can find us on any audio platform, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and anything else you can imagine. We're everywhere, completely free. All I ask is that you support my content, you share it with your buddies. If you like what I have to say, if you win some money, most importantly, let me know. That excites me. I like when I win money, but I like it when other people win money too, especially if I'm able to help them out. So good luck tonight, or not tonight. I wish it was tonight. Good luck on Saturday, guys. Hope to see you next time. And if anything changes or anything comes up from now until fight time, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at John Kelly DFS. All right, I am out of here. I will see you guys next time.